Fans, welcome to Wrestletalk. As you'll notice, we've had to swap locales because I have to keep this Arctic Barbarian away from me.
They obviously not getting along for some reason. I don't think it's rational to be not getting along at all, you know.
I'm willing to put it aside to do the show.
I want to apologize to the fans, to Kelly Joe, or
To me.
I didn't say anything about you. Did I say anything about you?
But you were about to.
No, I wasn't.
Continue.
I'm sorry for my outburst and my actions. I'd like to continue to do the show in good faith and goodwill. And just put it on the record. I'm not Canadian. Never been to Canada.
A lie detector in the back going off. No, continue. I was just talking to John. You talk to the camera. I was talking to John.
Folks, this is...
And also, I'm fairly certain Patrick's from Florida and a big Gator fan.
What?
Now, hold on now. I'm certain that there's no proof of that.
What do you mean? I have proof.
Actually, this happened to have came up.
Matter of fact, there's video on the internet where he's claiming to be from Florida. He's talking about how bad he dislikes everyone from Campbell County.
I honestly don't believe that, folks. It may be true.
You know,
it may not. I just can't believe that happened.
I'm going to let your baseless, proofless allegations slide so we can talk about what's going on in wrestling this week.
There's some big stuff going on in wrestling this week. WWE's continuing a intriguing angle.
Actually, Raw has turned into must-see TV all of a sudden.
But it is still nowhere near the ratings it was getting in the late 90s.
Oh, they will never see those again.
I'm just looking at some of the numbers earlier. Overall, they were, it was number 2. I believe Pawn Stars beat them out.
That in itself is saying a lot because even with no competition, they dominated cable viewership.
Yeah, for almost 20 years, wrestling was the number 1 show on cable. Be it WWF Primetime, Nitro for years.
WCW Saturday Night used to get good ratings for its time slot.
Right.
Pawn Stars is a fine show.
It is.
They don't really cater to Canadians on Pawn Stars, so that makes it that much better.
I'll tell you what maybe WWE should try to incorporate it and maybe have Chumlee versus somebody at the next WrestleMania. He'd certainly be better than Snooki.
Oh, God.
Smush.
God, Snooki. Well, I don't know what WWE was thinking when they got Snooki. You get somebody from Montreal like that, and it's going to go downhill.
I just assumed that they were trying to find a suitable replacement for King Kong Bundy.
She's a little short for that,
But same general shape, right?
Should have come out in Bundy's onesie. That would have been interesting.
Now,
Horrifying.
actually, one of the big stories out of wrestling this week is coming from San Diego.
That's right. During Comic-Con, Triple H, Rey Mysterio, who else was on stage? Anyway, there was another one. They were fielding questions from fans, from reporters.
Standard comic convention panel.
Right. Things were going good, and then CM Punk showed up for a face-to-face confrontation with
The new boss.
The new boss. Because fans, we kind of skipped over it. Monday night, when Vince McMahon came out to fire Cena for losing the match, Triple H came down and handed out a decree from the board of a vote of no confidence and then basically the suspension of Vince McMahon as the president of WWE, and he gave also that they've named him the replacement.
I mean, I expected Triple H to eventually take over for Vince. I don't know if Vince thought he would be forced out like he's been. I guess that's what happens when things aren't going your way. The ratings are down. You got to get rid of somebody. I guess Vince, it's time to go.
It's interesting the way that cookie started to crumble.
Vince came up with a big speech, and Cena, I'll fire you. You're not bigger than Hogan. You're not bigger than nobody's bigger than WWF. No individual's bigger than WWF. That's been Vince's.
It's been some incredible foreshadowing.
Of course, and one of the things that
even Vince is not bigger than Vince.
Well, and one of the things that Triple H came out and said, he's going to continue that line of thought that no one's bigger than the business itself. However, apparently it was decided that Cena would not be fired, at least not at that time.
Nope.
Okay, if that happened, I didn't see that. That's getting pretty ridiculous, and I'm probably not going to watch Raw next week because of that.
You probably should.
Cena is pretty tough.
Yeah, you get my hopes up by firing Cena, and then what was the point of having the year fired match? It was pointless. It was a pointless match.
But
Cena doesn't get to be the champion, and Cena doesn't get fired. So that was a point. You wasted your money on that pay-per-view if you bought Money in the Bank. That's your $50 out the window. Nothing mattered. From
Actually, Triple H said that the board decided that it was a bad move on Vince McMahon for making it you're fired match, and basically negating that stipulation. So from what I gathered, now Triple H may come out Monday and said, you know what, Vince McMahon wasn't going to get to fire you, but I'm going to, which is actually kind of what I'm expecting him to say.
Okay, now they had the tournament for the title.
The tournament is going on for the title.
Is Cena in the tournament?
No, he wasn't in the tournament.
So I expect
it started the tournament.
It'll be either.
Basically, it is down to the final match. The Vince McMahon came and basically about a quarter till and said, "We're running out of time, and I got to do my spiel, and so you don't get to have your match." Rey Mysterio Jr., get out of my ring.
And he was set to take on The Miz
in the final match of the 8-man tournament.
Well, since they didn't have the match and Cena's not been fired now, guess what? I'm going to go on. This may not happen. I'll go to the limb and say there's going to be a 3-way match for the title at the next pay-per-view, because they probably won't do it Monday, even though they may have promised it. There will be a 3-way match for the title with Mysterio, Cena,
and then
and
I'm not sure
that wouldn't surprise me now because they have to put Cena at every angle.
I'm not sure what the pay-per-view is for next
This is
month.
SummerSlam month.
It's SummerSlam, and so
I think I saw SummerSlam was around the first week of August.
So, and if it is, then they would only be going a couple of weeks without a champion. It's kind of rare for them to go any length of time with no champion.
Now, SummerSlam is also considered one of the big four.
It is. It is the biggest of the. It's definitely the biggest of the summer quarter.
Right. I mean, it's considered in the same category as Rumble, WrestleMania, and Survivor Series.
Right. Those are the big four.
That was the big, they're big spring, fall. Something they used to only do for a year. But, I expect.
Maybe they'll have. Maybe they'll bring back War Games.
Yes, so
I hadn't heard that about the Cena part. I knew that they had the tournament. I knew that. I didn't know Cena did get fired. So now I'm
basically Triple H came out
completely let down by the
stopped
entire
all that. You should be.
It was a bad match anyway. Decision. That was worthless.
Other big news, you can call it that. Of course, Sin Cara has been suspended for 30 days.
Wellness policy violation.
Well, his first wellness policy violation.
That didn't take any time at all.
Apparently, he is doing steroids, which as we all know, you can do as long as you don't get caught. Because Vince McMahon from way back was a big supporter of the steroids as long as they didn't get caught.
Vince was a big supporter of them himself. I mean, I'm sorry, you don't get in your 60s and be built like that without being on the juice.
And walking that way.
Yeah.
There was some SmackDown news this week.
Big SmackDown news for you, Luke.
Why is it big SmackDown news for me?
Canadian icon Bret Hart touring with SmackDown.
I'm going to tell you, folks, just about 5 minutes ago, Luke found this out. He jumped up in the air and said that he's going to go on the road following SmackDown around the country.
Like a deadhead.
Didn't say that at all.
Luke, maybe coming to a town near you following his hero. You'll notice he has a silver vehicle with a giant Canadian flag.
No,
painted on the side.
there's no Canadian flag on my car.
There is now.
What'd you do?
Well, it's your birthday. And I painted your flag on there for you because you love it.
Why would you?
Patrick told me that Superstar talked to you last night and Superstar arranged this with you.
You know Eric Charles only has your best interest at heart.
No, he doesn't. No, he doesn't.
Eric Charles is a good man.
Eric Charles.
He wants us to come stay in Chicago with him.
I'm sure he does.
You're not going to start bickering over this again.
Now, speaking of Comic-Con, speaking of Chicago, it's coming up in 2 weeks. I'm assuming there's a WWE panel at that one too, because CM Punk specifically mentioned Chicago in 2 weeks.
Also, CM Punk has been touring with himself.
He showed up at an indie show.
At some indie shows. So
With his good friend Colt Cabana.
yeah.
We will see where this goes and that,
Definitely some intriguing angles there. And a non-storyline angle. I was reading this that Dana White.
UFC guy Dana White, for those of you that don't know.
He is the owner operator of UFC. And Vince McMahon had a sit down at the WWE headquarters. And Dana White, the only thing that he would elaborate is that they talk business and personal stuff.
Maybe Vince is going to wrestle him at Mania next year for Rise to UFC versus WWF. This has been some rumor swirling that Vince is selling to WWE.
And one of the other things is that during the interview, it seemed like Dana White made it a point to mention the XFL, because he said that he looked at the great history memorabilia of WWE and XFL.
That's interesting that would get brought up.
If anyone has the money to buy it from Vince, it's White. UFC exploded so much, I imagine he's extremely well.
Here's another interesting thing about Dana White. He's actually the best promoter of old school wrestling in the country, the way he presents his pay-per-views.
He made that sport very, very popular.
UFC currently is not unlike, as far as the way it's presented, is not unlike pro wrestling was in the 80s.
It's replaced boxing as the big combat sport in the country.
Although, and one of the big things that also helped it was after he bought UFC, he joined in ranks with the International MMA Alliance, whatever it's called. I don't know actually what it's called, but basically, he's acknowledging he's getting in with the rest of that sport.
Well, I know, Luke, you certainly keep up with lots of international relations. You make it a point to keep up with certain other countries.
Fans, we're out of time for this particular segment of Wrestletalk.
Australia.
And we will be right back with segment 2.